Hi, I'm Darcy, and this is a webinar replay. This webinar was live, but you can now watch it at your leisure. At any time, feel free to skip chapters by clicking the chapter icon in the lower right-hand corner. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it on over to Katie.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started with some of the context here. So it's no secret that the holiday season is one of the busiest times of year, yet it's also one of the most important opportunities to maximize the impact of your social strategy. While online shopping has been steadily on the rise for quite some time, the pandemic has fueled an exponential growth in e-commerce sales, and at least 28% of consumers actively plan to do their holiday shopping on social media this year. The social commerce market in particular has been experiencing an annual growth of 31.4%, and it's expected to grow over $600 billion by 2027. So you can't afford to sleep on your holiday strategy. And in order to be successful, you'll need to take the time to prepare your content and create a plan of action while hitting important milestones around your launch, including your pre and post launch. So Natasha will be walking us through the details of the 4 launch phases to help ensure that you're prepared to get the most out of this holiday season. So let's go ahead and jump in, shall we, Natasha? I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen so you can take over.
Awesome. Sounds perfect. Well, hello, everyone. Excited to dive right in. As I'm pulling up my slides, I would love to hear in the chat kind of where are you in terms of holiday campaigns? Like, do you already have some ideas in mind? Maybe already starting to implement some things? Are you doing it for yourself or your own business? Definitely let me know and we will dive right in. Okay, so this is what we're going to be covering today, how to maximize your holiday social media strategy. And if we haven't already met, I know I already got a really awesome intro from Katie, but I'm an Instagram strategist and I really started as a social media manager. So if you're a social media manager in the house, I definitely can relate of having to juggle a lot of different campaigns during this time of year. So that's kind of where my processes, my planning really comes into play, but now I implement it for my own brand as well. So why Instagram specifically? You'll see that I really love Instagram. I'm going to be kind of talking about the different surfaces today. But this really does apply to all different social media outlets. But why Instagram for holiday launches is I really think that it's one of the best ways to connect with your ideal customers. There's always over 1 billion monthly active users and 5 very unique surfaces for you to share your campaign, which means more opportunities to connect with your audience. And so this is kind of what your timeline is going to look like for the 4 distinct launch phases. The first one is going to be prep, and this is what we're going to be spending most of our time on. It's actually one of the most important stages. Then we're going to go to pre-launch, launch, and then post-launch, which I think is one of the most neglected stages. So this is kind of the timeline we're going to be going through today. So first, let's start with prep. And this is probably what you should be doing right now. Maybe you've kind of already started to think about these things, but this is really going to create the foundations for your launch strategy. So the prep phase is essentially creating or prepping all of your content for the next few phases. So when you're pre-launching, when you're launching, even during post-launch, we want to create all of that in advance. And the reason why is if anyone has ever done a campaign or a launch, we all know they can be really robust, even if you're doing the most simple form of it. And you want to do all the heavy lifting now as much as you can so you can really show up confidently during the launch process and really automating your content using Buffer and making sure you're staying ahead of things. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a launch and you're like scrambling to write a caption and you're like putting together sales pages and it can just feel really chaotic. And I think that's what can make launches and campaigns in the holiday season feel really overwhelming. So this is why this phase is the most important phase. If you do any of them, this is the one you want to do. So first thing you want to do while you're prepping is decide on your goals. And I'm going to be walking through these steps. So if you're like reflecting and want to put it in the chat, I'd love to kind of hear where you're coming from here. But you want to first figure out what is your goals with this campaign. So I kind of like to have like a spectrum of my goals. I like to start with a realistic goal. Like, what is a goal that I know I can hit if I am really putting my best effort forward? And probably this is going to be something that is data backed. So if last holiday season you made a certain amount of sales or you saw a certain amount of website traffic, that's something you probably want to reference when setting your goals, because you're like, I've done it before. That means I can definitely do it again. But your big dreamer goal is really pushing that envelope, and it's something that's attainable. You know, you can kind of scale that strategy, maybe see better results this year, but you're going to need to go into it with a very strategic and intentional plan to ensure that you're seeing the best results possible. So definitely think on your goals. What are your goals maybe for yourself, for your clients? I definitely would love to kind of hear what you're thinking there. And that will take you to step 2, which is actually creating whatever the offer is. This is something that I feel like is often missed, especially as marketers and content creators, people that are in our business, is we automatically think, okay, I'm ready to launch. I'm ready for the campaign. I'm ready to sell. But I think it can be a lot more difficult to create a plan when you kind of don't have the final product ready to go. So you first want to like finish, what is the product? If you haven't created it, like if you're creating a new course, maybe you're creating a bonus, maybe you're creating like a holiday version of something, you want to make sure that is as final as possible now. And what is it that you're actually offering? This can be bonuses, this can be coupon codes, but you want to set up all of the back end. So checkout pages, registration pages, coupon codes, bonuses. When all of that is ready, it's going to make actually promoting things a lot easier because all the data is there and you don't need to kind of scramble to get everything ready for you. So definitely make sure your offer is ready as soon as possible. And then you want to kind of decide on how you'd like to launch. So there's kind of 2 different ways you're going to launch. And the holiday part of this is actually what's going to make these launches and campaigns a little bit different than maybe what you're doing for the rest of the year, is you really want to consider what are important dates that you might want to coordinate your launch schedule and timeline around. So these are just a few that I kind of brainstormed that are coming up. The most recent ones are Small Business Saturday, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So if you're wanting to do something for one of those days or all of those days, since they're really closely aligned, you want to figure that out first, because that's going to be the timeliness factor of your actual launch. And then you're going to kind of figure out what type of launch you're actually doing. So these are kind of the 3 main types. You'd have a live launch. So this means that your cart is opening and then your cart is closing. So something is ending when you're actually launching your campaign. Another one is a new launch. So this could mean a new release, something that's exclusive to the holiday season, a completely new product, maybe your holiday collection. That's another type of launch. And then we have a promotional launch, which is where the sales, discounts, bonuses, and exclusive goodies come in. And chances are your launch might even incorporate a few of these, but it's important to kind of take all this together. Like, okay, these are my goals. This is what I'm really working towards. This is my offer. And then this is kind of the dates I want to put on my calendar and how I actually want to operate my launch. And then you want to actually put all of this into action and create your prep plan. So this is actually a content calendar that I put together for one of my clients. She's launching her membership, she's opening it up, and we wanted to just plan out everything. So I actually kind of like to work backwards. So I like to start with, what are the dates that I know? So those holiday dates, your launch date, when you're actually opening cart, things like that, or when your coupons are expiring, when the cart is closing. You want to put all of those important dates in first. So I have this closed cart date in here. I have like her little challenge, which is kind of a lead magnet that she's doing. And then I have her open cart date. So now that I have all of that ready to go, I can kind of like work back in time and I can add in content around it. And I find that's a lot easier for actually planning versus like putting your content in and then like planning your launch around it. So definitely pull out a calendar and really get to planning when it comes to creating your actual plan. So I like to first start by brainstorming. How often would you like to post during those weeks, those days leading up to your launch and during your campaign? And what are some content ideas that you maybe already have? Maybe things that you did last year, maybe some unique spins you want to do, maybe related to your offer, your product. What are some ideas you have just off the bat? And then how do you want to leverage the 5 surfaces of Instagram? I'm going to be giving you some ideas a little bit later for when you're launching and using those. But you kind of want to think of, okay, how do I want to use lives or stories or your feed content? You want to think of that intentionally when planning out all of your prep plan. And really start with that timeline. That's what I kind of showed you there. And then I brainstormed all the content around it. But start with that, those timely bits and pieces, and then work back from there. Okay, now that we've done some prep, we are going to move on to pre-launch. This is one of the most important parts for really nurturing your audience. So the pre-launch phase is to create demand or excitement around your offer. You want to nurture any warm leads that are a part of your community, that are following you on socials, and you want to make sure you're not selling to a cold audience. That makes having a really successful holiday campaign pretty tricky. And you want to make sure that they have all the information they need to partake in their holiday campaign. What I mean by this is, for example, I'm actually launching a brand new workshop right now, and it made me realize that a lot of people needed information. They didn't know about it. It was completely new, and they needed all of the details. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to know what is going on, what are the important dates, what are the details they need to know, because that's often one of the main obstacles for people partaking in your holiday campaign. And so here's some example of some pre-launch content, because I think it's always nice to kind of see it in action. So this was for my Hot Instagram Summer series. It was like a workshop series. And so I'm kind of hinting at it. Like, here's what's coming. I'm working away on this. My team's working on it. And then I'm kind of giving them some more details. Like, this is when it's opening. This is when the dates are. This is where I'm sending the link when it opens. So I'm kind of creating a lot of excitement. I'm warming people up on it for when I actually do launch it. They're not like, what the heck is this? I don't even know. So this is kind of really what you want to start with when it comes to pre-launching. So now let's move to your launch content. So pre-launching is really what you're kind of doing now as you lead up to your campaigns, but launching is when you're actually doing your campaigns, you're selling, you're having your promotion, you're launching your new offers. So let's talk about the ideal launch length. And I feel like with holiday campaigns, as we saw, there's just so many different ways to launch. But I really find that 7 days is like the perfect sweet spot for creating a sense of urgency, but also giving your followers time to make your purchase decision. And this doesn't mean that you can't have coupons that are expiring or bonuses that are expiring or exclusive products, maybe really small drops of products. That can definitely be a part of that. But I think when you're really doing a great launch push, you want to make sure you're giving it the energy and the time that it really needs, so you're not rushing it. But shorter and longer campaigns can absolutely work really well during the holiday season. It really just depends on your goals, kind of what you're doing with your launch and what type of launch you actually have. But I know this is always a question people have, is like, well, what date should we have? How long should it be? So this is kind of a good sweet spot to kind of aim for or be around. So I'm going to kind of walk you through some things you want to make sure you are doing for your launch. So first of all, we need to optimize your profile. You want to make it really easy for people to find all of your holiday campaign content and learn about what it is that you are launching and offering. So I personally love to really have a highlight for this, which has all the stories that I'm going to be sharing during my campaign. So if anyone missed it, if they want to reference it later, it is all there for them to access. And then I also like to update the last line in my bio. This is kind of where you want to have that very intentional, very strategic call to action. This is going to be saying, join whatever it is that you're selling, get this exclusive coupon, get a certain amount off, shop our exclusive collection, whatever it is, you want to make sure that it's outlined in that last line. And this might actually be something that will change throughout your launch. Maybe while you're pre-launching, you're building a wait list. Maybe while you're actually launching, you want to share the coupon code. Maybe during one day, you're offering free shipping. So you want to make sure you kind of think of what are those last lines, those call to actions you want to have in your actual profile. And you want to also make sure that you update your link in bio. And that is where start page is absolutely perfect. You want to make sure that you have very specific calls to action to your specific products, give them all the details they need to know, and make it very pretty. So you can definitely access that through Buffer. And you want to make sure you're updating it during the holiday season for that link in your bio. Now I'm going to kind of go through the surfaces of Instagram. I'm going to be showing some examples from my launches, but also some other product brands, other brands for you to reference that I think are doing holiday campaigns and launches really well. So for lives, I think this is such a great way to leverage collaboration and connection, not only with other people, but with your actual audience. So I think it's really great to go live with other customers or collaborators that are part of your launch. So as you can see on the left, I actually went live with one of my students, and she was able to talk about her experience. And it's a really great way to add social proof to my launch and just kind of add a different face, a different person to the mix for the launch. And then this is another example of Gold. They sell products, wellness products, and they do a really great job of when they're launching new products of going live and actually showing the product. How does it mix? How does it feel? What does it look like? Why did you formulate it the way you did? Lives can be longer form video content, so it's really great for replying to those questions, answering those questions right there on the live. And I always find when I incorporate them in my launches, I get a lot more sales. So really great for frequently asked questions. And it's really great for just energy as well. Possibly planning a launch or two on when you're opening your cart or when you're having a certain promotion, just to explain things, kind of add some timeliness to it. So these are some great ways to use lives. And as you know, there's so many great live features to use now. You can schedule your lives. You can have them up to 3 other guests there as well. So definitely want to make sure you're using lives in your schedule. Okay, stories. I love stories because when people react or reply to a story, it leads to a direct message conversation with that person, which for warm leads and potential customers, this is absolutely so valuable, not only for answering their questions, but ensuring that they're really happy with their purchase for the holiday season. So this is really great for celebrating new students. If maybe you have a course launch, for example, celebrating new customers, sharing any testimonials, screenshots, case studies, and also just breaking down your frequently asked questions or your sales page. I love to repurpose that on stories and then save it to that highlight. So it's kind of giving them all the information they need to know on a digestible story graphic. And I really love to address any buying concerns. Talk about why your product, offer, campaign, sale is offering something to your potential customers. I also think I have Natalie Rogers here from Class C Network. They do a really great job at showing behind the scenes, like showing behind the scenes of their shoots, packing orders, trying on their different tops. And then I have another example here that's actually one of my students taking over my stories and talking about their experience. So kind of a different way of sharing a testimonial or review. Now let's go to Reels, our Instagram video, the newest part of Instagram. And what you really want to do is use the power of video storytelling to really share why your offer is different or unique. Why should they purchase your product over all the other ones that they're probably seeing on their feeds during the holiday season? This is really great for those video testimonials and definitely repurposing user-generated content, influencer campaigns, leveraging other people in your community as a part of your content. And you really want to share your expertise and why you are the person to solve their problems. And I think that Natalie and her team at Classy Network is such a great example of this, is they're saying why you will love their tops, what makes them different, addressing the pain points, and showing them in so many different ways just using video. So video can be very simple, but leveraging Reels and Instagram video can be a great way to really show off your products and campaigns, and also have a lot of fun with the holiday elements, music, things like that. And I want to kind of caution a common launch mistake that I often see is creating all of your Instagram content to just sell your offer. We want to talk about it. We want to talk about that, of course, but your audience doesn't really buy what's included in the exclusive package or how much money they're saving. They really want to buy it on why it's going to make their life better, or especially for the holidays, why is it going to be a unique gift that they're giving someone, a loved one, or being a part of their holiday season. You really want to highlight those points versus here's what you're getting and here's the discount. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to convert those really warm leads when you're launching on Instagram. So now I'm going to wrap things up with the post launch. So this is the one that I said, very, very neglected. And this is because we want to avoid just posting, ghosting, and being done with our launch. We want to make sure that we're auditing our launch first and foremost. Reflect on what worked, what maybe didn't work this time, and what could be improved on next time. And sometimes while you're in a campaign or you're in a launch, you'll be able to see small tweaks that you can make. Like maybe you noticed lives are where you're making a lot of your sales. People are really excited about them. Then you probably want to maybe add a few lives into your mix. So this can be something you're flexibly doing during your actual campaign, but you want to make sure you take that extra time to audit and really make sure your launch is effective for the next holiday season or your next campaign. But more importantly, you want to maintain your Instagram strategy. And I am all about having really healthy boundaries on social media, on Instagram. And I think that the holiday season, the end of the year, is a really great time to take some time off and not necessarily post as much. And there's a way to do that while still having a really effective campaign. And that's by not launching, sharing all this great sales content, and then completely ghosting your audience. You want to batch your content while you're doing all that prep. And I love to use Buffer when doing this. So I like to kind of figure out what are some ways I can kind of nurture my audience, give them a little bit of a hug now that I've like sold to them a bunch. How can I celebrate my new customers or a really big win during this campaign? How can I make the people that were a part of it feel really special? And what are the next steps? Is there another launch coming next year? Is there a wait list? Is there a campaign they should keep their eyes out for? What happens if you sold out a product? This is kind of the types of content you want to be posting after your actual campaign. And it's okay to reduce your posting amount, but just automate it, let it go, and make sure that you're still being in touch with your audience, even if it's just a little bit after a launch. So I just want to recap what are those next steps for those 4 launch phases before we open it up for Q&A. So you can have some action steps that are going to make implementing all of this really easy. So when it comes to prep, this is something you're wanting to do right now. Decide on your goals, create your actual offer and all the tech behind it. Decide on your launch type. So holidays, what type of launch are you doing? And then start creating your plan and start actually prepping and creating your content. Then you're going to want to start pre-launching your content, which you're going to want to start posting now. Warm up your audience, nurture them, give them details about this upcoming launch or campaign so they can be prepped, they can be ready for when it actually happens. And then you're going to actually want to launch and have your campaign. So share all of your launch content. I love to include social proof where you're kind of showing other people a part of your launch, really building expertise in your product or what you're offering and what really makes your offer unique. And make sure you're leveraging all 5 surfaces of Instagram. So stories, lives, reels, video, feed posts. We want to use all of that in our campaigns. And then you want to audit. Once it wraps up, once you are done with your launch, audit your launch and see what results you had, take a peek at your analytics and see what really worked and what didn't work. And make sure you maintain your posting schedule. Use Buffer to automate your content even after you're launching, so you can kind of take a step back, regroup, maybe take a little bit of a holiday break, but still be showing up for your audience, even just a little bit during the holiday season. So hopefully we can connect after this webinar, but I will pass it on to Katie and the Buffer team, and we will get on to the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Natasha, for sharing that great information with us, really breaking down the holiday marketing strategy into those 4 launch phases makes it so much easier to understand what needs to be done in order to maximize your strategy. So thank you so much for that. So we will go ahead and head into our Q&A right now. Just as a reminder, please add your questions into the Q&A area and we will get to those in the order that they came in. Please don't put them in the chat area because we really want to make sure that we can see them. So we have a lot of great questions coming in. Natasha, the first one that we have for you is if you have any tips for non-sales related growth on social media. This particular company doesn't really offer something to be purchased. They work commercially and most of their business contacts are not on social. So they're not making decisions on social, but they want to grow it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say leverage video as much as possible and just make sure that you're adding some value to Instagram or social media during this time. I think that there's often a lot of noise during the holidays. And I think that if you're adding something unique, something different, maybe having a conversation, really creating unique content, that's really how you're going to see a lot of great traction this time. So what I would really recommend is leveraging short form video content like Reels, or even longer form video content like Instagram video. Now there's just so many different ways to create those types of video content that's vertical. Personally, I really love lives. I love collaborating with other people with lives. So maybe people that are in similar industries, maybe people that are like within the company, and just having really great conversations. I think we saw from Clubhouse at the beginning of the year that people are really just craving that connection and those conversations. So if I had to focus on anything, I would say Reels is definitely great for growth. But I think definitely leverage your community, start engaging and creating live content because that also can be saved to your feed as a replay.
Great. Thanks so much for answering that. That's a really great question, Danielle. So the next question we have is from Susan. And Susan's a solopreneur who has finding that a lot of the marketing is taking a really long time and it's feeling pretty time consuming, but their product creation is the primary driver of revenue. Their main goal is to streamline all of the tasks. And so if you were to pick 1 or 2 surfaces of Instagram to address, what would it be for maximum benefit? And then also, how often would you post to those? Susan's main goals are to grow audience engagement and grow revenue streams.
Awesome. Yeah, I think those are really awesome goals. And I think that's the first step that you're already super clear on. I definitely recommend kind of taking inventory and what do you have the capacity to do? That's always what I encourage my clients to do first and foremost. I can tell you a number, but it's really different for everyone. And it's a lot less about how often you're posting, but the quality of the content that you're posting. When it comes to surfaces, I like to break it down into 2 parts of Instagram, stories, and then everything that's shared to the feed. So stories are expiring content, which means that there's a timeliness factor to them. They also don't have to be perfect. And as I kind of mentioned in the presentation, they're amazing for creating really great connection points. As you start to grow your account, having new people as a part of your community is really great, but having those relationships, having them engage with your content, that is really incredibly valuable. So really focus on that type of content. I I think that strategic behind the scenes are the best way to do that. I think I remember you saying, Katie, that they offer products. So show you creating the products, packaging the products. Why did you create the products that you're creating? Which ones are available right now? If you have this problem, what, product is the best? Maybe posting a question sticker and opening up for Q&A and asking if they need help with certain products. So that's really what I would focus on for stories. But then I always say the feed is the other part, and it's kind of a choose your own adventure. There's so many different types of feed content because the feed isn't just carousels and photos anymore. They also can include reels, lives that are turned into replays, and they can include Instagram video and just regular feed content. So I always say choose what feels the best for your brand. If you feel like you're really great with maybe music, shorter, quicker videos, I would definitely leverage reels. That is the best way to increase your reach. I also think that lives, as I mentioned, is a really great vessel, especially if you feel like you love talking and connecting with people. I also think that carousels, if you're going to post on the feed, post a carousel, whether it's a graphic or a photo, because people spend more time on them, which means they're more likely to comment, save, share, engage. So if you had to choose for growth, I would say a feed carousel, probably a graphic or something that has a lot of your different products in it, or reels would be the best for growth. But I also think lives are really great for engagement.
That's so great. I really appreciate what you said, Natasha, about the behind the scenes for product as well on your stories. I think that's such a great idea and something that's really underutilized. So thank you so much for sharing that detail with us. And great question, Susan. All right, so the next question we have is, what if you're launching a campaign without offers or discounts and only existing products? What would be the best way to go about that?
Definitely. So what I would do is I would add maybe some type of timeliness or something new to it. And you don't necessarily need to create something new, but maybe it's the positioning around what you're selling. So maybe it's perfect for the holiday season, for gifts. Of course, everyone's already starting to think about a new year. Is it going to help their life be better in the new year? Is it going to help them prep? Is it going to help them with wellness, with their goals? I think it comes down to angling what you actually offer to give it that unique kind of holiday, end of the year, Q4 spin. That's what I would recommend without having to do a lot of extra work. But I think the easiest way to do it is maybe offering like a bundle, like maybe bundling some of your products. I think this is a really great option because you're going to increase your profits, but you're not really doing more work. You're essentially just bundling whatever it is that you have to offer already. So those would definitely be my two recommendations that are pretty low effort, but are going to give people a little bit of a reason to purchase this time versus in the future.
Great. That's really, really helpful. Good question. So the next question we have is on your slides, Natasha, about the reels and using video. Emily's company only has 600 followers on Instagram, and they want to use reels to advertise or sponsor. Are there any key things to know of doing video ads?
Definitely. So I would actually maybe give an encouragement of maybe just try doing reels without ads. I think that if you're leveraging trends, you can see insane amount of growth without necessarily having to put money behind it. I think Instagram and Facebook obviously want to make money off us. And I think there's definitely a time and place for that, especially during the holidays. But personally, what I would do is I would focus on two things. I would focus on trending audio or music on reels, and keeping in mind, this doesn't have to be dancing. It doesn't have to be pointing. It doesn't have to be lip syncing. It doesn't have to be what you don't want to do for your own brand. But what I would really recommend is, you can literally open it up right now on Instagram. Go to Instagram, go to your reels feed and start scrolling. And chances are you'll start to see a lot of the same sounds, and you'll also see certain audios that have a little upward arrow next to them. So what that indicates is that it's trending in that moment, which means if you use it, you have a lot more likely of a chance to create a trending reel which can result in a lot of really great new followers. So I would definitely look at those trending audios, start to source that. And I think if you post like 5 to 7 reels a day and put your attention and energy behind that, you can see a lot of great growth. I know when I did a Reels challenge, I was posting 5 Reels a week. I saw a growth of 5,000 new followers when I was doing that. So I genuinely think you can do it without some ad spend behind it. The other thing you want to consider is make sure that you're creating shorter videos. There's definitely a time and place for longer videos, but the more people watch or loop a reel, reels, TikToks, they're looping pieces of content, so they automatically repeat themselves. The more time people spend on your reel, looping it and rewatching it, the more likely it's going to perform well and go viral. And a great way to do this is maybe if it naturally repeats itself, maybe it's how the music is or how you film the content, or you're just using something really short. Or maybe at the end of the video, they have to wait for something like a transformation or before and after. But by doing that, you're going to increase the likeliness that your reels are going to do really well. So I know I kind of didn't really answer the question, but organic growth's a little bit more my thing. So that would be my recommendation when it comes to reels.
That's super helpful information. I love hearing about your personal experience doing your Reels challenge and how many followers you gain from that. That's really impressive. And it's awesome to see the results of organic content like that. So thank you. Great question. Jordan asks, you said that there were 5 surfaces of Instagram and covered feed, reels, stories, and lives. What's the last one?
Yes. So feed, stories, I always have to count them out of my 5 hands. So stories, feed, Instagram video, reels, and lives. That's the 5 surfaces.
Awesome. And then we have someone that had a customer ask them to remove the double opt-in. They said that they will not be removing the double opt-in, and how will that affect their launch?
I don't think it'll affect your launch. I always like to say when you're launching and having campaigns, you will be for some people and you won't be for everyone, which is why it's not necessarily about the quantity, but it's sometimes more about the quality of people. So legally, of course, you have to have your double opt-in, keep your double opt-in. That's totally fine. But I'm sure, just let them know that very respectfully, see if there's a way that they can get around it. But really just focus on nurturing the people that are warm leads already and interested in your content.
Great. Thank you. Mary asks, can you explain what's the big difference between Instagram Live and the feed?
Yes, great question. So lives are live, kind of very similar to this. So it's live streaming video, completely unedited, which might be scary to some, but I think it's actually really helpful because you don't have to edit your video content. And it actually really humanizes your brand because you're speaking, you're talking just like you normally would. You can show your personality, you can show you holding things, demonstrating things, but it's live, unedited, streamed video. So it goes live at a certain time. You can now schedule your live. So this is great for your launches and campaigns. And there actually is engagement on it. So you're getting comments and feedback in the moment, which I think is the best types of engagement because people can ask questions, they can interact, and you can see it there on the live. And you also can host Q&As. There's a little Q&A sticker, very similar to how we're doing it on Zoom. So you can quite literally do your own webinars. You can do your own demonstrations. You can even do your own interviews or panels. So I love going live with other people. So you can have up to 3 additional guests while you are live streaming. And that's essentially how lives go. They can go up to an hour long. So you can spend a ton of time on there, or they can be short and sweet. It really kind of just depends on what your video content is about. But I would just encourage that even though it is live content, it can feel a little bit more flexible, a little more fluid. It's definitely have a little bit of an itinerary or an agenda so you can stay super focused and valuable. But then with your lives, they can be shared to Instagram video, formerly IGTV, as a replay, which then goes to your feed. So you're essentially creating one piece of content that is actually going across Instagram, which I think is really awesome. And when it comes to the feed is where a lot of different content goes now. But in general, a feed post is something that is a photo or a video or a carousel, which is multiple photos photos or graphics. And it has a caption. It's usually square or portrait, and that's a feed content, but all the different types of video content essentially can be shared to the feed as a preview now.
Thank you. That's such a great explanation of the differences and how you would actually use each one to help your strategy. So great question, Mary. We have a couple questions here from Andrew in relation to buffer. So I'll go ahead and take some of these, but feel free, Natasha, to jump in as well. Andrew asks how it relates to buffer for the holiday posts. So one thing, Andrew, that you might find to be helpful in buffer is that you can plan all of your content ahead of time using buffer, space it out, kind of like what Natasha was saying. You don't actually have to sit online and post every post that you have, but you can plan it out and those posts can go out automatically. You might also really find our start page beneficial. Start pages allows you to create a custom landing page, and then you can put that link either in your Instagram bio or share it with whoever you like. And people can go to that link, click on your images, your buttons. You can really direct your audience to any content that you want to share by using Start Page. So that's a really great way for you to kind of leverage buffer for your holiday marketing strategy. All right. And Andrew, I saw your next question too about posting your launch content in buffer. So kind of like what I was saying before, you can use buffer to add that content in ahead of time. We also have campaigns in buffer. So if you wanted to do a holiday campaign across all of your social media sites, you can organize that within buffer, and then you can go ahead and hop over to analytics and see how that campaign performed. So great question. We have another question from Mike. On Reels, are you saying to post your own Reels 5 times a day or reposting someone else's Reel throughout the day?
Yes. So I would create your own Reels content, and that was actually only 5 times a week. 5 times a day is a lot of content. And Instagram has even said that more content necessarily isn't better, but you just want to be more consistent with how you're posting. So I like to do 5 times a week. That's my business hours. That's how I like to post. But I would definitely recommend just figuring out what cadence you can keep up with and posting it consecutively. But I would kind of create your own native content. I wouldn't focus too much on repurposing. I think you can repost content and get a lot of great results there, but kind of create your own viral reels there.
Excellent. That's a really great, helpful tip too, that you don't need to necessarily post all day, every day, but you can really space it out and find what works for you.
Definitely.
All right. So the last question we have here is that people don't tend to engage when they post question stickers despite having a few thousand followers. How can we increase the Q&A engagement? Great question.
Yes, I love this question. 2 tips to help you. First of all, get very, very specific with the question that you're asking. I think the ask me anything types of questions, which is obviously what Instagram prompts on the sticker, so no problem if you've done this before, but I think it makes it where there's a lot of work on the viewer's end. Like they have to think of what they're going to ask you, which I think is why it can often hold them back from asking questions. So get really specific. Instead of me being like, ask me anything, I will say, ask me your questions about creating reels. As you can see, you're probably having a lot more ideas on what you want to ask there versus doing a general Q&A. And the other thing that I really encourage is by creating a story before and after you share your sticker. So you're giving people time to actually engage with it. So what I like to do is initially give context. Why am I hosting a Q&A? What is the topic about? Why might people have questions about it? And tell them I'm going to host a Q&A. So ask your questions in the next story. So then I'm going to post the sticker. And then after I post the question sticker on a different story, I actually like to do a tap back slide. That's like one of my secret stories tricks there. So what I'll say is tap back if you missed that question sticker, because people are often just like speed tapping through stories. So they might not even mean to miss your question question sticker. So just by getting really specific on what you're actually putting in your question and then encouraging them to tap back, I find is just a really great way to get more engagement, but just be consistent with it. Sometimes I post question stickers and polls and they get more or less engagement than others. So you kind of have to see like what your audience is really going to respond to. And one little bonus tip is you can also use the question sticker as like a prompt. I actually, I think it was last month, I did a business confession series. So I was like, okay, what are some confessions you have around having your own business? And of course they're anonymous. So it got a lot of really interesting responses and a lot of great conversations. I mean, my DMs were full of people like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this. I agree. I disagree. And I think you can do that with any industry of like having confessions or myth busting or saying your favorite thing to do in your wellness routine if you're a wellness brand. So I think there's a lot of creativity there. So just have fun with your question sticker.
Those are such great answers. And I love that tap back trick. That is not something that I've used before, but I'm definitely going to use it going forward. So great one. Thank you so much. So that wraps up our questions for today. And I'm so appreciative of everyone's really thoughtful questions. Those were great. And I definitely learned a lot too. Natasha, thank you so much for joining us. This was just a wealth of information and we're so lucky to have you. If you are watching live, you will receive an email tomorrow with a link to the recording, and you can feel free to share that link with anyone you like. You can also pop in and check out any of our other webinars, and you'll be able to find those at buffer.com/webinars, which I did just drop that link into the chat as well. So thank you, everyone. I hope you have a really great rest of your week. And Natasha, thank you again so much. It was great to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Bye, everyone.